All right, guys, we are live. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today I have Crystal to, I think, the left and Derek to the right. Um, not that I couldn't tell which one's which. I never know. Like, is it mirrored? Is it not? Because usually I'm on Zoom and it's like, wait, are they really to the left or is it to the right? So no, Crystal's on my left, Derek's on my right. Crystal is with Syncro, and Derek, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Aloha, I'm Derek Gabriel. I'm the CEO and original co-founder of Ignite Solutions Group. We're a technology service provider in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. So, what we're going to do today is something a little different. I know you guys might actually be sick of us by now. Crystal and I have done like half a dozen of these where we just come on, we talk about Syncro. I've been able to ask her some questions and talk about my experiences while using Syncro, and it's been fun for me. I've learned a lot. I think it's safe for me to say I was one of those guys who had a really strong opinion about Syncro because I remember using it in the repair shopper days, So it wasn't even Syncro yet. Um, so I was really opinionated because I was thinking, break fix. But it's really not break fix these days. It's MSP. It is Syncro MSP, and I also have kind of come to realize that it's not necessarily small MSP. Like I think I think one of the things that a lot of people assume is that you're going to outgrow Syncro, and while you may kind of hit, I'm going to call it a ceiling on what you can automate within Syncro, just because they haven't developed certain PowerShell things yet, right? But that doesn't mean they won't make it for you. So I want to, I guess, first, Derek, tell me a little bit about your MSP. What size are you? How many employees do you have? How many endpoints do you manage? How much money do you make? Whatever you're willing to tell us to help us kind of like qualify all of the people
Right.
that could be watching this and trying to justify Syncro.
Sure. I consider us to be small. Technically, right now, there's only one full-time employee, and that's me. We're formed as a corporation. I built the business. Let me go back a little bit. I originally started a technology company in 2005, and that was sort of by accident. I had moved to Hawaii in 2002, and I wanted to get as far away from the Midwest as possible and still live in the United States. I'm originally from North Dakota, Colorado, Kansas. And I used to, as a young child with freezing ears while I was shoveling snow up to my knees or waist, I would say to myself, I don't want to live somewhere where I have to shovel snow when I grow up, right? And so that's ultimately how I ended up in Hawaii.
That's
And
fair.
after moving to Hawaii, I wanted the job with the least amount of responsibility. And I answered some ads in the newspaper and took a job at a car dealership as a service advisor. And I did that for a few years. And it was a Ford dealership, and then I went to work for a Mercedes dealership, thinking that the Mercedes dealership, because it was a better brand, would be a much better place to work. And it turned out that the folks that ran the business were pretty horrible, and it was not a fun place to work. There was days where the wash boys would go home for whatever reason at 2 o'clock, and I would be in my suit and tie washing my customers' cars because they had to be clean when they got them back. And so one day I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I was walking across the street. At the time I put the notice in. The assistant manager says, "Well, if that's the way you want to be, you might as well leave now." I'm like, "All right, here's my keys, here's my phone," and I did that thing you see like right in the movies. I had the box, and all my stuff fit into a little box. And I was walking across the street. It was a beautiful November afternoon in downtown Honolulu, and my tie was slapping me in the face a little bit because there was a breeze. And I thought, what am I going to do now? The funny thing was I was super happy. And so I knew it was the right decision. And I called a friend of mine that had a technology company in Kansas City, and at the time, that was back when application service providers, that was all the rage. Way pre-cloud and still hosting, and so him and I had been friends for quite some time off and on, and I saw him sort of build his company, and he knew some of the stuff that I was able to do as a software developer. So I thought, I'm going to call this guy and tell him, hey, you got a branch. Tell your clients you have a branch office in Honolulu, and I want some work. And I thought I was going to get software development work. And the phone started ringing almost immediately, and it was, hey, can you go install a router? Can you go fix a printer? Can you help us upgrade our internet, right? And it was all this outsourced stuff that I didn't understand, but I was immediately became a trunk slammer, and it surprisingly though did really, really well, because I hadn't anticipated that in a place like Hawaii, we're very isolated. There's a lot of large corporate entities that have offices here, especially in retail and hospitality, right? And so they need tech people, but they don't have tech staff, right? They don't want to pay for full-time people. So we did a lot of outsourced work, got tied up with CompUSA for a period, and was doing really well. And then there was some writing on the wall. But ultimately, that company started in 2005. I ended up spinning off my own business out of that because we had some weird double taxation with the way it was working, the corporate tax versus the personal tax, blah blah blah. So and then essentially we did a combination of that. I had a couple of friends that joined me along the way, and it was field service, network heavy. We sort of called it infrastructure management, that kind of thing, right? Tried to build reoccurring revenue before reoccurring revenue was all the thing, right? But had a really hard time because it was really hard even just to negotiate relationships, right? So we did a lot of work with Starwood for a period through Sprint, and then Sprint lost their contract with Starwood, and it was this other company, and then suddenly we got a company from Canada calling and saying they want to negotiate a contract, and they're like a third of the price of what we were getting with the other company, and it was one of those moments where it's like, you know what, F you. And then you're like, uh-oh, now what am I going to do? So Ignite actually started in 2014. And, I saw the cloud early on. I knew it was going to be a big thing, especially for small businesses, right? Because we were going out at that, in the early days, trying to sell like small business server, right? To a small business. Maybe they got 10 employees or 15 employees, and you had to license Office for the 10 or 15 machines. You had to license Window for the 10, 15 machines if they didn't have the OEM license. And then you had to license the CALs and the small business server. And it was like a $20,000 outlay for someone to do a small business server. So suddenly, it was back in the early days, right? Business Productivity Suite. And it was like $20 a month per employee instead of $20,000 up front. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be big. But the way business works, right? You have people know you a certain way, people know you do a certain thing. All of our customers at that point were a lot of large corporate customers, and no matter how we tried to spin maintenance contracts, it just didn't work out that well. So I kept running into customers that would say, hey, we're doing this thing, we got this cloud stuff or whatever. And I would be like, well, why didn't you call us to help you with that? And the story that they would tell me is, oh, we didn't know that you did that, right? And so 2014 rolls around, and I met a gentleman that was doing a bunch of HR stuff and contracting things for another military-focused company. And I said, hey, let's start our own business. And so in 2014, Ignite Solutions started, and it's been an interesting ride since then. It was probably, I think, 2016 when I got real serious about the business. It was sort of touch and go. The revenue was horrible to non-existent. My business partner ended up leaving. Him and his wife worked. She's from Japan. She worked for a Japanese company, and they ended up closing their Hawaii office. And they decided to move to San Francisco. They were ready to start a family. They have a beautiful little kid now. But yeah, so I basically in 2016 sort of kind of had a moment to myself and said, what are we going to do? And I decided that I would get serious about the business. And that's when I sort of, started the official MSP at that point, right? That's where it was cloud first, cloud focused. All of the solutions were built around Microsoft solutions. I had, back at that time, Microsoft was still very focused on small businesses. So I had, partner account managers. A gentleman named Justin Slagle that I worked with on a regular basis has been instrumental in getting me to, I think, where a lot of great advice came from him. A gentleman named Sherman Crancer that worked at Microsoft, that has now, interestingly, on his own helping cloud partners accelerate. But yeah, so 2016 to 2020, end of 2020, I just hired my first full-time technician who's going to start on Monday. And so, yeah, that's long answer to a short question about how big we are. But I kind of wanted to qualify, a lot of what we're going to talk about sort of based on this, right? But I did as much as I could as a sole proprietor to grow without people, right? And so I took advantage of automation a lot, and that was important in a lot of the tools. I used some contractors, some outsourcing as well along the way. But I'm pretty proud. I mean, as an individual, we're closing out. So before the call, I did some numbers real quick. We haven't closed the official book, so I don't have net numbers. But gross receipts for 2020 right now are $257,000, and we've got like one order for some network equipment that's like $4,000 that's supposed to close, like hopefully she pays today, and then it'll be, I can say it was 260. But anyway, yeah. So that is, and to put that growth in perspective, I said 2016 is when I got serious and decided that it was going to go from a hobby business. It was lifestyle at that point, and I decided I'm really going to grow a company. And in 2016 to 2017 was a 66% increase. And then 2017, 2018, 2019, those are both, obviously building years, right? But I was looking back, and 2017 to 18 was a 12% growth, and 18 to 19 was only 18%. And those felt big at the time, and then 2020 hits. And this year we're closing, like right now we're at 49.75. So, if we put a couple more dollars in the books, we might hit a 50% this year. But what's really awesome is that $257,000 is not all reoccurring revenue, right? That's total gross. And we had a lot of hardware sales this year, right? Work from home drove. Costco, I cleared them out a couple times. I was standing in line with 10 laptops, like hoping they weren't going to limit me, right? And putting orders in with Dell that were taking 3 months to fulfill. So I think we did probably at least maybe 75,000 in hardware alone. But so again, focusing on sales, focusing on growth. We did just sign. We closed it. In fact, the joke was I usually take like Christmas to New Year, like the last couple of weeks of the year off. And this year I'm not, because we're onboarding a customer, because we just closed another new contract for the year. And so now I have hit the 250 mark in full reoccurring revenue for 2021. That's what we have contracted. So I'm super excited about that. And margins took a hit because, so the other thing I do in December is I'm just rambling. You guys stop me at any time. So I know that was kind of a specific question.
No,
but
it's good information. It's it's
right.
not relevant to the question, but you're still educating me on how your business runs. You're fine.
Right. And December's the time also, like I feel there's two things that are great about December, right? We all know it's a great time to get a deal from vendors, because a lot of them are still like they sell services like it's hardware, right? It's a 3-year contract, and you got to sign this DocuSign. I have a DocuSign in my inbox right now to decide if we're going to go back to IT Glue. And, it's a 3-year contract. It's like $12,000, $14,000 over the 3 years. And I'm like, do I really want to give Kaseya $14,000? I mean, like, what am I going to get out of it? So anyway, I usually December's that time to reflect on what's going to happen for the future, what happened in the past, and shuffle the deck. The nice thing that we do is, so I actually don't call us an MSP anymore. I call us a technology solutions provider, most recently a technology success provider. And the thing is, we're all, at the end of the day, selling all the same services, right? Patch management, automated remediation, blah, 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 blah. But the VCIO thing has become really, really important and key, that along with cybersecurity. And so being able to focus on those gives us an opportunity where we're selling a solution package, right? And so if there's a tool that I want to swap out, it as long as the customer is getting the thing that we promised at the end of the day, the result, then it doesn't matter how we achieve that. So that's one of the things that I think has been really beneficial for me as well is I mentioned Justin Slagle from Microsoft. He told us it must have been 5 or 6 years ago now, but he said stop selling Microsoft 365. At the time, it was Office 365. And I was like, wow, that is such a hyperbolic statement. What do you mean by that? And he did a video, and I actually still have the video, and I go watch it every once in a while for inspiration. But the point of the message was, don't stop selling the product. Stop selling it as a product, right? So if you're out there selling Microsoft 365 and you're selling, the E3 SKU, everyone knows the price.
A couple bucks
right.
for license.
Right.
That doesn't do you any good.
Depending on your distributor, right? You're going to get 5%. You're going to maybe get a kickback from Microsoft on top of that, depending on how you're buying.
Right. So,
but people can price shop. It's a commodity, right?
I'm with you there. I mean,
and so
when you're doing that, in my opinion, you should be kind of bundling everything. You've like, for now, I'm doing everything as per user, and I think in Q2 or Q3, I'm gonna adjust some pricing. So I'm gonna have my per user stuff, and then I'm gonna have my per device stuff.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what his messaging was, and so that's when we started with Ignite. So we have an Ignite technology package, right? And so I'm with you. I'm an all-in seat price. We do all-in seat price, and I started that that came organically. That came from the School of Hard Knocks, right? But then there's people like Gary Pica. And folks that kind of preach that, and I'm like, oh, okay, like this is what you're saying, cool, I get it. Like I'm, and that's one of the things we just joined True Methods probably in November, and I'm excited because a lot of the things I feel like I learned organically through the School of Hard Knocks, he's talking about that he learned through his experiences, and so it feels like it dovetails well. So there's a book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and I believe in that quite a bit. So, I've got to do something new and learn some new things. But we sort of did packages inside of the all-in seat price. And we essentially, because our customer base is fairly diverse. We, up to this point, haven't done specialization, but we are starting organically again. That grew. So hospitality, retail, luckily we weren't heavy on those to the pandemic. So I do have a couple of friends that own restaurants, and I did a bunch of free work for them to help out. But we have some folks in retail. Luckily, we have one that's sort of medical. There's sort of discrete manufacturing in the medical space, and so they're extremely essential business. They've been growing through this period as well, and then we have a number of nonprofits. So our sort of specialization is going towards nonprofits. And it's funny because usually when I mention nonprofits, a lot of people sort of like look at me really weird because they're like, how is there money in that space, right? Because they're so capital constrained, and that's true. They have extreme overhead, constraints, and they have very labor intensive. They need to have a lot of reporting that's done to the funders a lot of times, right? And so the default way to do that, the default way that a nonprofit solves their problems is by staff, right? They staff people. And so the cloud, specifically Microsoft, with their ridiculous discounts, made it really fantastic for us to essentially pass on those discounts to the customers in our bundle. And so essentially a nonprofit pays half of what a regular customer of ours would pay, but we still have the same amount of margin. And so we're delivering to nonprofits not a technology product again, right? We're delivering to them an optimization solution that really helps them on the back office. The CFOs love it. I go out and before the pandemic, we went to lunch, but now we do virtual Zooms and stuff, right? But the CFOs told us they love it because they got a fixed cost, right? That all on seat price. And then the CEOs love it too because, again, it's helping them expand some of their capabilities. Yeah, I'm totally rambling again. So back to you.
No, and the best part is I can mute myself on the video and cough, but I think you guys still hear me cough. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
For all of those. All right, so I want to rewind a little bit. So I think I heard you say we have 250 for MRR. Are you saying you have 250 seats that you're managing right now?
No, we have 10 fully managed customers, and then we have a handful of what I call DIY.
Okay.
And DIY grew out of those are typically customers that have their own IT staff, and they range from like 150 to 300 employees, and they wanted Microsoft licensing, and so it was hard to sell. Like, I had to come up with a way that I could sell Microsoft licensing, and we would obviously be the partner of record, and help with that sort of that third tier of support, right? But essentially, when you've got a Microsoft partner that sold you a license, you've got to call the partner for support. But 99% of the time, we're escalating that because it's an exchange, whatever, or it's it's some back end service. But there's a value to us being that. Nothing sucks more in life than calling Microsoft tech support. Let's be honest. And so there's a little bit of value to selling someone licensing and being an expert in how it's provisioned and activated and used. So what we came up with was the DIY package, and essentially that allowed us to have that tiny little bit of margin and almost no cost. And so those customers don't really count for much, right? But there's a huge opportunity for us as we're growing to sell additional services to them, right?
Right.
So
and a lot of people would call that co-managed IT services.
It's not quite co-managed because
sure.
We're not.
Well,
you're
a vendor to them,
Right.
So,
it's not the full co-managed, right? So
right.
for us,
if
it's co-managed,
you're doing a little bit of the Office or Microsoft 365, even if they're
right.
doing all the admin and you're just selling it to them. You're at least managing the billing, so
right.
I would say that counts as co-managed. And I think my video is now doing goofy things, so that's great.
You look good here.
No, it's technology, guys. Okay, I'm gonna buy a new Mac next week. I'm telling you, I should do it tomorrow. That way I can get the expense.
We can call it co-managed light to mince words.
Yeah.
But the idea is to move to a full co-managed, right? Like that's the.
So do you have Syncro agents on those endpoints?
No, we don't.
So how many Syncro agents do you have out there?
So of those 10 clients that are fully managed, we have roughly 350 actual endpoints among them. And so those would be endpoints that, like, if I go into Syncro and hit assets, that's the list I see.
So from those clients that you're doing some Office stuff or Microsoft stuff and you don't have agents, how many users or endpoints could that potentially add if you were able to get all of those people on board?
Probably like 500.
Okay.
Yeah, we would essentially, if I could sell them all contracts, I'd triple the business.
Okay. Obviously you haven't sold them all contracts, so you haven't tripled your business. I'm sorry. All right, so let's talk about the 350 that are in Syncro. So you said you're about to hire your first guy.
Yep, have hired.
You have hired. Okay. So to have 350 endpoints, and you were doing all 350 by yourself, essentially, right?
Correct.
I mean, that takes, in my opinion, some serious automation or some serious negligence. One of the two. I would like to think yours is going to be automation.
Totally.
Crystal, you wouldn't introduce me to somebody that's negligent, would you?
I certainly hope not. Yeah, I think I would definitely, I would be happy to hear too. Again, that I was just looking. Yeah, you're spot on, right? At like 350 endpoints for one technician so far, owner operator technician. So not only are you the tech, you are doing the sales,
right,
doing the marketing, doing the billing, all of that. So how are you leveraging the automation in Syncro?
Extensively.
So like what have you automated? I think would be, and I'm talking big picture. I'm not asking you to tell me what the scripts are, but I mean I'm sure you've automated some chocolatey installs and updates beyond what the built-in software management piece does.
Well, luckily, right. Yes. Obviously, all of the partner software that we use is installed and orchestrated through Syncro. Ironically, the Syncro agents installed via Endpoint Manager, which used to be Intune, right? So there's some stuff we could talk about more when we get into the story of, RMMs and where the future lies. But ultimately, so I've standardized very, very heavily, right? Like, so all of our customer environment, and that, I think that is absolutely key, right?
Yeah.
So we chose Fortinet as our hardware partner. Every customer has a Fortinet firewall, has Fortinet switch, and at minimum one Fortinet AP. A lot of them have, depending on the size of the location, they have multiple APs. The only thing that differs is the model of the FortiGate, right? Like they might have the default that we go with is a 60, was the E, now it's the F. It was a B, then it was a D, then it was, so that's how long we've been a Fortinet partner. And so that's essentially, because of the standardization, there's not a lot of deviance. Things don't deviate much in there. Each obviously individual customer most likely has some kind of line of business application, right? And so customers, the value proposition of the messaging that I've used up to this point is we're the cloud technology partner that's going to help you take advantage of all of that goodness, right? And so customers actually come to us to migrate. Like, it used to be migrations, right? Now it's management and acceleration, but it was to get rid of servers, right? So it's funny because, we talked about vendors a little bit, and we'll talk about them more, but it was a year or so ago. I can't even remember which product it was that came, and they're like, hey, we got this awesome backup solution. And I was like, well, I don't have any servers. Like, we literally don't have any servers. My customers have no servers. They're all, if they do have, it's a virtual machine in Azure. And, but on premise, like, so there's a lot of the crap, the BS that I've specifically standardized out of the equation so that it was, the scalability was there for me.
So that's awesome. So let's talk about some of the other things that you might be like automating through Syncro, because I feel like we've still only, just kind of scratched the surface, right?
We have.
So I assume you've got some things that are like automated remediation.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
the small stuff, right? Like disk space is low, it runs, I forget the app, right? There's an app that runs, it deletes temp files and a bunch of things, opens a ticket, puts some notes in the asset, closes the ticket, logs some time, right? So that when I run that report every month to show, when you run that report every month that shows your client what you're doing, you got a bunch of extra time. You're like, how did you do 800 hours? Like, it's not that crazy, but right.
That's impressive.
And then we recently added another product, Auto Elevate, and I guess we can go through the product list if you want at some point, and then we can talk specifically. But Auto Elevate's a new one too, right? And so one of the, like, I try to look at this. So I'm huge on customer service. I have a book. You're going to see a pattern here. There's a lot of, I'm going to mention books a lot because I do a lot of reading. But Satisfaction, hopefully that's not backwards and upside down. This is actually an old book. It was written, I think, in 2006. It's by one of the J.D. Powers' sons. The fourth, I think. But it's basically the gist is you have two types of customers, right? You have advocates and assassins. And you have to work extremely hard to keep your advocates. But you screw one little thing up and you create an assassin immediately. And obviously you know what those two types of people can do. But so for me, I try to look at it always from the customer standpoint, right? What is my customer's experience like? And one of the challenges that I know that we've had specifically the last year with people not in the office is admin rights on the computer, right? We had one customer where I just couldn't sleep at night because their crappy line of business software required the user to run as an admin, right? And so I looked for a number of solutions for a number of years to figure out how can I isolate that application that's running as admin and not give the employee that's access to the computer the admin. And we came across Auto Elevate, and it was like the answer to all my prayers. But Auto Elevate, if you're not familiar with it, allows you to create rules. It's based on the hash and some additional variables of the application that's running. And if it needs admin permissions, the Auto Elevate agent essentially pops it up, gives it an admin password, and then recycles the admin password account so that there's no stored admin credentials on the computer.
That is
cool.
I didn't know
it's fantastic. Right. And if the end user wants to install something, say a print driver that needs elevation, traditionally for my customers, they had to open a ticket, right? And if I'm out in the field dealing with someone else's whatever, that's a horrible user experience because they might not get an answer for 4 or 6 hours, right? That wasn't a critical thing. There was no big SLA on that. And so for me with Auto Elevate, now I can anywhere, right? Drive through getting food, and I get the request on my phone, and I can auto approve that. But essentially, you run it sort of in like an audit mode, and you create rules that you feel are important, and then the other stuff you're like, we'll deal with those on the fly. But now there's between that product and its integration with Syncro, a ticket is opened. The checks that it does to verify the app, it puts in a note. I approve it. It puts in a note it was approved. It sends a message to the customer. The Auto Elevate gives them a prompt on the computer, and the ticket's closed and time is added. So like that function now, I mean, in the last month we've been using it, it's already saved me hours, right? Because, and it's given my customers that better experience. So that's an example of an automation that's in conjunction with Syncro that I think has been and that's the type of thing I look for, like, right?
Good.
Anything I can do time's the most valuable component, right? It's the only thing that's finite. Work will grow to fill up whatever time we give it.
So, how do you go about building an automation? Is it typically, because I think the one thing that a lot of MSPs or IT guys that are trying to be MSPs, I think the one thing that they assume is, they just need to get all the same scripts that the other guys have.
Right.
And I mean, there's some scripts that we could all be sharing, like the disk cleanups and the print spooler restarts and that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'm probably going to be getting different tickets over and over and over than what you are getting because I've got different customers. So my customers and those tickets could be. They keep creating them, the users are creating them over and over, or it could be things that my RMM tool are creating over and over because there's an issue that continues to pop up. So I think that the best approach when it comes to remediating things automatically is that you should be looking through your ticket history and finding the tickets that keep popping up over and over and over. And that's why, some of these remind me, guys, like with Autotask and ConnectWise, they've got like the multiple levels of what kind of problem is it? Is it a computer? Is it the software in the computer? What like they've got the multiple levels. I don't think you have multiple levels on Syncro, right?
Yeah, you have multiple categories. I think, are they called categories, Crystal?
Well, you've got your ticket issue types, and then you have
issue types. That's what it was. Yeah.
And then you have custom field types. Yep. So you can.
And you also got the statuses. Yeah, we've got 15 statuses, but it's the ticket. Because I fell into that trap, right? Like you get 2 by default.
But then there's like so I think with like Autotask they call it like ticket category. So is this software, server, desktop, etc. Right?
Right.
And then they've got ticket type and ticket subtype. So if you were to look at like the ITIL, then it's move, add, change, and then what type and so on and so forth. So because built in they've only got like the first level, the appropriate thing to do would either be to utilize user-defined fields, custom fields to create those additional drop-downs, or to just simply have like the single row, and it you might have 5 million ticket categories now, but now you've got move, caret, computer, caret, new desk, or whatever, and then you got all these different types. And I guess my point was that is why it's so critical for people to use these ticket categories, and then to even dive deeper and to try and get as granular as you can when it comes to categorizing your tickets, because that's going to make it easier for you to search Syncro when you're like, what should I be automating? That's my only reason, is because it's going to make it easier to search. When you're like,
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. First of all, I've worked in various, like I said, right. I worked for a car dealership. Way before that, in my early years, I worked in a call center. It was a third-party call center that did tech support for Microsoft. So there's a few Microsoft products I did support on. And I'll tell you right now, and Microsoft had a bazillion-dollar knowledge-based customer support system, right, with the categories and the blah blah blah. And I know firsthand, and everyone watching is what you say is like sort of like somewhere there are textbooks where that kind of thing is written, right? Like subcategories, categories, blah blah blah. But show me a technician that during the operation of their work does any of that crap, right? And it's actually this is the quintessential CRM problem. The CRM is amazing if you fill out all the data. But the problem is, in the heat of the moment, no one puts the data in, right? So Syncro gives you two default categories. It's like maintenance and service or support. And quite frankly, I think we did the better part of a year before I added another category. And because literally those are the two things I do, right? Like, is this maintenance, which helped me like essentially qualify like firmware updates to the firewall or whatever, stuff that was pre-scheduled? Or is it service? And to be honest with you, like 99% of what I do is service. As far as like, so would it be awesome if there was the opportunity to have subcategories? Sure. But truth be told, at the end of the day, if I really want to analyze that data, I'm going to pull out the tickets through the API. And all I need is the category and the notes. And if there's decent notes, I'm going to use AI and I'm going to reason over those notes with cognitive services. And it's going to use inference to figure out what the problem was, right?
Okay,
so
you just
like
made
if
my
you're
brain hurt. All right, so let's back the truck up for a second here. All right, so you're using the API and AI.
I haven't done this.
FBI
This is what I would do though if I really
CIA.
care. Right. So I think the notes are super important, right? And that's something that was always drilled into me as a technician working in larger organizations. You got to have these great notes because when I worked in a car dealership, it was because the notes back up the warranty claim, right? Like if your notes are wrong, the dealership won't get paid for the warranty and you're going to get in a lot of trouble. And as a technician working in a call center, your notes are going to be read by someone else next time. So if you don't have decent notes, you're going to have a coworker that's going to slap you in the back of the head because they got a call and they couldn't figure out what's going on. So I think that's the message I'm going to give my technician when he starts on Monday is like the notes are the most important thing. But at the end of the day, all of the rest is sort of kind of this minutia that you can get lost in. And I think it's important that the tool has to get out of the way. And I feel, and maybe I'm way the hell out in left field, but there are other resources that we could use to analyze that data. I do have sort of this is a complaint that I have about Syncro, is that I would like more, like, so we originally signed up for the premium package that included, was it Domo? Or there's some analytics package.
Yeah, it's Domo.
And yeah. So I think, I don't know if it was Crystal, you, or just someone in support I had an email exchange with at one point, middle of the year, and was like is that really, like, can I just not have that? And like, do I lose anything if I don't have that? I really wish they would go the Power BI route, but I heard them say on their thing that they're not considering it. But they do have the API, and you can get some stuff. Like right now, there's another integration we use, ScalePad, which used to be Warranty Master, right? And Warranty Master just, they now have a software inventory. So you do the hardware assets now, you can do software lifecycle and that kind of stuff. But all of the integrations they have, Syncro's the only one that doesn't do software because the Syncro API doesn't expose the installed software on the endpoint. So hopefully they'll change that at some point. But like that's kind of an example, right? So I don't expect, there's just, we picked Syncro because it had the strongest story when it came to the agent itself, right? The automation, the quality of the agent, the ease of the install, and the one thing that we came from SolarWinds prior and evaluated every product on Earth. I even did an evaluation of I can't remember the name now. We looked at them. We looked at everything. Terra, blah blah. I have like on an annual basis up to the prior to using Syncro, I had at least once or twice a year a Jerry Maguire moment. And I no joke, I have friends that, run companies in other parts of the country. A good friend of mine in Tennessee, Stephen Bradley, has a company called PCM Mind Technologies. We were on a board many, many years ago for a company called OnForce. I don't know if any of you remember that. It eventually got acquired by ServiceNow. But it was an on-site network where you could get plugged in, right? Similar to Work Market, where it's the trunk slammer's dream, right? Like, oh, your work orders just show up and you go do work, you get paid. And he used LabTech at the time. When I started out, right, there was two choices. Silverback was one of them, and it cost $100,000, right? Dell eventually acquired them, and now it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And then Enable was an option, and they were out of Canada. And like back then, you had to install software, you had to have a server, right? So I've been around the block. I'm going to start singing. I knew, early on, met people from Kaseya. They tried to get us in to do a deal with them, blah, 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 blah. And, ConnectWise was awesome at one point. And then now it's all like, and most of it's all the same stuff with different names. And so I did my Jerry Maguire moment. I would, to one point, literally sort of wrote the things we, need to talk about, but we don't in technology. Didn't publish it publicly. But I'd call up my friend Steven in Tennessee, and I'd say, Steven, I can't take it anymore. My software is holding me back. Life sucks. There's got to be a better way, right? And then I would be like, I would Google, RMM, blah, 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 or, remote management, blah, blah, blah. And every once in a while, a new thing would pop up, and I'd be like, oh, who built this? What is this? And it's like, oh, this is Ninja. And then you go, okay, well, where did it come from? Oh, these are the guys that wrote whatever it was, that got acquired by Dell, right? Yeah, and it's funny. And I would evaluate it and be like, oh, this is crap. Like when they first started, they came out of the gates, and I had high hopes, and I evaluated it, and I was like, I just can't even do updates. Like, this is horrible. So I was like, nah, next. And so we ended up at SolarWinds via multiple acquisitions, right? It was post Hound Dog. Logic Monitor,
GFI Max,
and
then
Logic
so it was
Now,
Hound Dog, and then it was GFI Max, and then it was Logic Now, and now it's Hound Max, GFI Logic Dog.
Exactly. So that six-headed beast, we came to them, but between right at the end of the GFI and so it was a couple years that we were with them. And, in the beginning, they had a cool story, right? It was like, hey, we're, again, right? It was organic. And then it was, we're not going to charge you more than $1 an endpoint. We got this capped pricing. So install all the stuff, and then all of a sudden, SolarWinds. Right. Well, and I got super excited when SolarWinds acquired them because the original SolarWinds was a fantastic company. They had an exceptional company culture. They were software developers. They were they could do anything. They had products that did anything. And I don't know at what point that all went to hell, but they ate these larger companies that then ate them. And obviously the Orion thing is like, the outcome of what happens when no one's paying attention. And but yeah, that's what happened, right? They're like, oh, we have this new pricing model. We're going to grandfather you in for now. And then 6 months later, it was like, yeah, that pricing model, it's coming. And so suddenly it was like, oh, wait, you got to pay $50
4 times more for not 4 times more anything?
You got to pay $50 just to be our customer. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, So remember when they added that platform fee?
Yes.
Based on the number of customers they had, I think they were going to make an extra $12 million a year just thanks to the platform fee. And with that, we got nothing, was my opinion. We got nothing for it. And then, SolarWinds, I think they did the platform fee as Logic Now. And then SolarWinds acquired them. And then
I'm sure they did it's the Costco business model, which for Costco works great, right? The membership fee. Mm-hmm. But when it's, and because there's a bunch of value that comes with that, right? You get things.
Yeah.
extra warranties and service and
Yeah,
better
you
return.
get things with
Right.
the SolarWinds
I
stuff.
imagine they did that. Like if I had to like go back into my not crystal ball and sort of figure out why they made those moves, that's a CFO BS money thing so they can make themselves look better acquisition.
I was
right?
going to say that was 100% purely acquisition driven.
Right.
They wanted acquired. They wanted a bigger check.
Yep.
And that's
the kind of
stuff.
I think we were.
I gotta say real quick. I'm sorry. That's the kind of stuff that people worry about with Syncro. Not that we've seen it, but we worry that it's coming. Okay, so we all worry that like it feels like you're the only company left that doesn't have all this PE money invested into it, and when's the shoe gonna drop? And I
can name three. There's three. So I can let's do this real quick because this will lead into what I want to talk about better if we go through this. Let me tell you the companies we work with, right? This is like I'm going to give out the recipe, but no one's going to like I'm not worried about it because like everyone can go and buy the cheesy biscuit box of cheesy biscuits at Costco or the cheesy biscuit recipe is out there from Red Lobster, right? But like anyone can make the cheesy biscuits, but they don't taste they're not done the same way and like they're cheesy biscuits at home are not the cheesy biscuits at Red Lobster. So we not in a specific order here because I realized after the fact I should have done this in order of like most favorite to least favorite. But obviously our biggest partner is Microsoft. We're huge. Everything's 100% tied to Microsoft. So M365 Azure, we use Dynamics. I use Dynamics internally. Roar is LionGuard is and they're definitely on the top of the list of friends. DNS Filter, and then SentinelOne. And then Huntress. And then, of course, I mentioned ScalePad before. And then we use Keeper as a password manager. And then we're with Datto, unfortunately, but that's because of the Backupify acquisition. We use that for the Office 365 backup. And then, like I mentioned, Auto Elevate is the newest product. And that's sort of the list of vendors that make specific products that get installed or activate the service. There's the distributor list, and then there's sort of what I consider the tools. So that's the list of like customer facing things that do customer stuff. We use Logic Monitor, Syncro, Zomentum now, and then Xero for accounting. Those are sort of like the operational tools. And the reason I wanted to put this list out there, right? Pardon me, I'm sorry. Yes, quoting.
Okay.
Yeah, we used another product, and I feel really guilty about this. We used another product called Quotient, which is not it's not an MSP. It's not a tech related, like they're not focused on tech. They're just a generic quoting tool. It's web-based, software as a service. I've been with them since I started the first company. They're awesome. It makes beautiful quotes. It has the whole, verifiable e-signature stuff. And what was so awesome about it is it dumps it right into Xero. And then at Xero, it's an invoice. And then like 2 clicks, it's out, it gets paid. Like it's just a beautiful workflow. The problem is they don't integrate, like there's no integration to the great Yonder. And so every time Fortinet upgrades from the C model to the D model to the E model, I got to go in and add a bunch of manual entries to so I got sick of that. And we just, in spirit of full disclosure, we just switched to Zomentum, not Zoomentum, Zomentum, like November. And and I'm sort of like, because something else we'll get into. But the reason I wanted to give out that list is there's 3 companies I can think of off the top of my head on that list, including Syncro, that are not essentially owned, by private equity. And Roar and Huntress, right? And Syncro. Logic Monitor has money from someone, but I still think they're independent. But so those 4, and ironically or not ironically, those companies are the best ones, right? They have the most amazing company culture. They are the most responsive. I feel like they truly believe in us as partners, and that's part of the reason that, again, I feel like I'm maybe beating on a Syncro drum, right? But that was one of the reasons why we picked Syncro as a product. I think people are apprehensive, and this is direct feedback for Crystal, and I've told her this before. But I think I was super apprehensive a year ago this time a year ago, maybe November, is when I was I went through, I did it right. I was like, I had my goldfish in the bag. I was like, I'm leaving here. Who's coming with me? And I was like, F the MSP industry. We all suck. And I was Googling, and that's when I came across Syncro. And of course, like a good, business person, I wanted to know who is Syncro. And I get on LinkedIn, and I'm like, Syncro. And it was like goose egg, crystal comes up, right? And I was like, and then somewhere on the internet, I found Ian. And I was like, I think this guy's in marketing. But then I looked him up on LinkedIn, and it was Repair Shop or Repair something or other, right?
Yeah, he was Repair
and then I
Tools or whatever.
Right.
He did Kabuto and then that other thing.
Right. There was all this stuff that I'd never heard of that was just non-existent. It felt like a house
by trunk slammers.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? I heard that if you owned a shop, like I'm thinking back to like, Computer Go Round or something like that. If you owned a shop, you used Repair Tech or whatever it was. Like that was it, from what I understand, like the research I did is it was the awesome thing. And then they're like, and I see that in there, right? Because you can print a barcode. I'm like, why do I need a barcode for my customer file? And I'm like, maybe I'll put barcodes on files and put them in the filing cabinet, But in the intake form with the signature, I'm like, oh, that's cute, that's neat that it can do that, but I don't need it. But yeah, I was really apprehensive. Crystal sold it, obviously, and Crystal gets on a call with anybody, she sells it. MVP for sure over there, and
she's great at selling stuff, man.
Right. I only now, after like a year, know a little bit of the backstory of the product and the people that created it. And to be completely honest, it scares the shit out of me a little bit because
what does Syncro?
Yeah. So there's two gentlemen who, Chris, you're gonna have to help me because I'm horrible with names and I apologize. But there's two gentlemen. Andy, right? Is Andy the guy that does the videos?
Yep, Andy, and then Troy was the one.
Is he the CTO, or the director of product?
He is co-founder and CTO.
Right. And this is like, and no offense to this guy at all. Like, I'm sure he's an amazing person. I've seen 15 minutes of him on a Zoom, but I had some friends that did this. Like, I've been in and out of the startup community. I know how this goes, right? I had a friend, her and her husband started a business a decade ago or so. And they were like, yeah, we wanted to do this thing and no one else was doing it. But I didn't know how to find someone to do it for me. So I went on YouTube and I learned how to program. And like, that's a fun story when a business is starting, but that scares the shit out of someone like me when the chief technology officer is the guy that taught himself how to program, right? Like, I mean, we all have an origin story that's similar to that. But what I'm getting at is the Orion thing, right? Like this is the part that really, really scares me about small companies growing big, and I'm certain Syncro is growing quite well, is I just worry, like so I've poked around. Like I said, we use the API. I just wrote an integration. Contact management, I'm going down the path. Contact management in Syncro sucks. I put in a feature request. I'm like, can we just normalize the phone numbers? Can I type in a phone number and you put the parentheses and the dashes in the user interface? Like, I don't care. Like, I want it to just normalize the data. But for us, the customer, and I rely heavily on the contact being in Syncro again, because I do so much automations and stuff, right? So if a ticket comes in and the contact's not there, if I have a company that did some turnover and I didn't update it, then it gets assigned to the default contact, right? And then suddenly we're replying to someone it's not their ticket. So I was like, I need to solve this problem. And all of our customers, the single source of truth for customer information is Microsoft, right? Because they all have Azure AD and they all have Microsoft 365 accounts. So I just wrote a bunch of Azure functions that go in and they take our distributor for the Microsoft licensing. They pull in companies. They take the Microsoft 365 then and pull in the user accounts. And then they merge that and they pull out of Syncro, update the records, then push them back to Syncro, And then, we built that integration because I needed all the customers in Syncro. But so using the API gave me the opportunity, I wonder what they're doing, right? So I started poking around into the system a little bit, and you read some headers, you read some responses, and you start to look at some stuff. And I was happy with what I found. There appears to be a layer of security on the API. They use some third-party products that are very well known and very respected for API security. So that makes me feel good. but just a couple of days ago or yesterday, there's now a really weird thing that came up in the forum I spend like 1 hour every quarter on Facebook. And that's why most of the people, if huge Syncro fans from Facebook watch this, they're gonna be like, who's this Derek guy? But I spend no time in Facebook because quite honestly, I think I should spend all that time on the business. So no offense to the Facebook people, but there's this weird tool in Syncro that's designed for, I believe, and I don't know if you know about it, Crystal, but it's sort of a self-service thing where apparently customers at one point could sort of sign up for your packages. And so there's a URL that you go to, and I'm not going to mention it because I think it's a security situation. I think it's a data leak. But I did this. Like, so this new customer I mentioned that we're signing up in December here, it was the first time, this is how I know Syncro's getting traction, because it's the first time I took a customer from another MSP and I had to uninstall their agent, and it was Syncro. I was like, oh, this is awkward, because I didn't recognize it. The installer gave us a bunch of errors, and so we're troubleshooting, why is the installer throwing errors? And then it turns out that it's because there was an agent already installed. I wish there was a better way to do a takeover, but I had to call up, I had to like get my customer, and this is the thing, right? You got a good relationship with the customer. This doesn't matter, but you call up and you say, hey, I'm here with so-and-so, and we need the uninstall code for your software. And they didn't ask, and unfortunately, they didn't ask a lot of questions. And I also felt that like I used that as a teaching moment for my customer. I'm like, look, I could be anybody. They just gave me the code to install the software on your computers, and I could be a hacker. So this is a good reason you're switching to us. But anyway, once the software was uninstalled, but this URL, it shows you the list of all of your policies. And so one thing that you have to do in Syncro, right? Another feature request everyone wants, and I believe they said is coming, is like sort of inheritance in policies, nested policies or whatever. And so the way it is for us is we have like 15 policies, right? 10 fully managed customers, and every customer has at least one policy just for them, because even though 80% of the environment's the same, there's things that have to be different. And so we use, obviously, security through obscurity. We use, 3-letter acronyms for each of our customers. So when you see my list, it's not obviously who it is, but of course I went in and turned off all those things. But I did that for my competition. I knew their name. And so yesterday I put in their URL and I saw their policies, and I'm like, I know who your customers are. So anyway,
I'm dying to know this URL though.
It's on the Facebook. It's a super thread on Facebook, so I won't say it out loud because, like I said, I consider it a data leak situation. The powers that be said they're addressing it. I hope sooner than later.
I'm just curious because I look at things through the eyes of a child, So I'm like, ooh, cool. Like, I want to look at my own stuff. I don't care about the other people's stuff. Like, then you said, oh yeah, I looked at my competitor and I know all their customers. Like, oh yeah, that's why that's bad. So,
right.
No, okay. So I've got to ask, did you take screenshots?
I wrote some stuff down. Not gonna lie. I don't consider it espionage or anything because if anything, I'm gonna go tell them. I'm in a small enough community where I know pretty much all of the other, we have a lot of co-opetition, right? Yeah. They're competitors, but we also collaborate on certain things, right? But just for giggles, I wanted to see how far and how wide I could go. I stopped short of sending like a rainbow list of company names to the thing and seeing what I could pull off. But what I did is I went down the Facebook thread and I hovered over Facebook members' names, and it would say so-and-so CTO at blah, blah, blah. And the default, when you sign up for a Syncro account, the default is like blah, blah, right? It's 2. Like, so my company is Ignite Solutions Group. It gave me Ignite Solutions. And so what I discovered is like, when you go, if a company's like such and such tech repair, you put in such and such and you get their list. So out of like 8 people on Facebook, I pulled up like 6 of them that I could figure out in a couple of minutes. So, and again, I see it's their policies, and it's everyone has a test, everyone has a no management. So there's some interesting things I gleaned from that, but that's it's in this day and age that's dangerous. So, but anyway, they're addressing it. I don't want to.
So I want to take a minute here because I see, we've got some comments. Riku Chaco says Syncro is a very nice RMM tool. Richard Macias, he joined Syncro 4 months ago. It's freaking great. I'll even add that so you guys can see that right there on the screen. It's freaking great. Don't worry, I didn't have to put any asterisks. It is actually the word freaking. The only thing that he wishes is that they had a way to run an installer or uninstaller without scripting. So
yeah.
I'll say
it would be nice to go in that software list and say uninstall, right? Like,
yeah, that would be really nice. And obviously, for the ones that are using, the standard install tools, that would be easy for Syncro to do when it comes to. All right, well, we know the uninstall script is always going to be this, and then whatever the hash code is regarding the software, and then -U, -S for silent, -F for force, all that stuff, right? So, yeah, I mean, it would be easy for Syncro to be able to do that kind of stuff. The problem is not every software uses one of those major software compilers, because those things, can get expensive depending on how many installations they plan on having. And then the other thing is, who's at fault if it doesn't work? Is it Syncro's fault if the uninstaller is throwing up error messages, or is it the company that made the software's fault and they screwed up something when building out that script, so the script doesn't actually function in the command line? It only uninstalls from the apps panel and settings. Or is it the actual software compiler issue, to where maybe they're using an older version or outdated version and this command doesn't actually work? Like, there's so many variables. So I understand why Syncro hasn't done this, but they still should.
No, I disagree, and I want to defend them. Like, I want to take up arms for Syncro on this, because it's easy. It's so, I don't even know what the right word is, but to say it's easy is like, oh, they should just do this thing because it's a button on the interface.
Hey man, you saw I did air quotes.
No, I know you did. I know. But I just need to call out that my background is originally in software development, right? Like, I understand that there's a couple of different ways to install software, but like, no one follows the standardization rules, right? And then on top of that, you end up with a situation that we had when we were taking over this customer. They, sad little customer, thank you for coming to be our client, but they went and bought a bunch of computers at Office Depot. Office Depot installs what I consider malware, which is like some remote, I had to Google it to figure out what it was. And it turns out it's their remote agent crap. And it's so horrible. I tried everything I know as a software developer, short of like writing a script to just rip that stuff out of the registry. The only way to uninstall that software is to right-click on the tray agent and choose uninstall and click OK. There is no silent switch. There is no entry and add remove programs. There is nothing. And so they're not the only ones that do crap like that. And so to put the onus on the RMM to be able to do that, yeah, it would be a bonus feature, but I just know the amount of cat wrangling it would take to do that. And to me, there's so much more flexibility in allowing us to do that through scripting that I think, why?
Yeah, and I think, like, if you don't mind, if I kind of just hop in here just for a second here.
No, Kristen,
I think that it's.
Talk. No.
I'm gonna talk.
Please.
I'm gonna talk. Dang it. Okay, so there are a few things that I kind of want to address just in regards to what has been talked about the last few minutes here. So, the uninstall thing. Yeah, I think both of you kind of see the insights and the writing on the wall there, that it's not something that we hear and we're just like, no, we don't see the value in that. We're not going to do it. But with everything that we release, we really, if you go to most other RMMs and you talk to MSPs, they're like, yeah, it works maybe 50% of the time. And 50% of the time is like a good number. And so like for us, it's like, hey, we would much rather spend our time working on something that is solid and reliable and that kind of thing. And this is one of those things that is just not that way. And then I want to just address kind of what Derek was mentioning, almost being fearful of, the fireside chat and, the transparency there. And I think that what's really unique about Syncro and a company as a whole, the reason that more details about Troy, which is our co-founder and CTO, is because we are so honest and transparent. That's who we are as a company. He's going to sit in front of our community and answer questions and be him and be human. And that's really like what it's all about. And, everyone that knows Syncro also knows Ian. And, I've now been with the company since before Syncro launched. And I'll tell you just a little bit about, my experience. My first call with Ian, it was, I was talking to a person. I was incredibly intimidated. I was switching industries into the technology world, and I was crazy intimidated. I was very worried about it. And one thing that immediately, I just knew right away was our culture was we are people first, and we build that way. We have employees that are growing, and we, build up this community internally as just as much as we do externally. So I think it's really important just to say that, I understand where you're coming from and those concerns, but I think the amazing part about that is that you literally know who our co-founder is and our CTO, because he sat right in front of you. And you're not going to find that other places. You're not going to find that for SolarWinds, ConnectWise. You're just not going to get that type of relationship. And so I think that's pretty incredible. So I just wanted to say that.
So Crystal, I just want to say, this is the first time you've spoken for so long today. Geez, Derek. So I was able to put the focus on you. And can we just talk about your office for a minute here? Because I just want to remind everyone that Syncro is a remote company. It's not we're working from home because there's a pandemic. It's we've always worked from home, or whatever you guys want to do as employees to have an office. So look at this. This is, I assume, in Crystal's home, and she's got the Syncro logo on the wall. She's got everything is in the Syncro colors or shades of the Syncro colors. She did a phenomenal job putting this office together. And I got to say, that really actually, to me, shows her dedication to Syncro, because the fact that an employee of a company has decided to decorate an entire a chunk of their home, their actual house. And I'm sure, I'm going to assume that you did this all from your own personal funds. I'm sure they don't give you an office budget, This isn't like the big fancy law firms. So, she's actually gone out of her way to make a really cool, little paradise for her to work and feel like she's working for Syncro, even though she's at home, So I will say, awesome job. Kudos to you for that. It looks amazing.
Thanks.
And Derek, you're supposed to say something nice to her now too.
And go.
I'm sorry. I know that was so rude. Yes. No, I've said the same thing, because I've seen Crystal recently, and I love the background. Sorry, I was getting caught up on the text and the Twitter and drinking some water. I was on mute. So
it's okay. It's okay. So
I want to just say something real quick too, because I realized letting Crystal talk, which we should do obviously more often,
yes,
gave me an opportunity to reflect on that comment. And I do have a tendency to make hyperbolic statements, and then we'll eventually qualify them. And I don't want that to be I realize that sort of almost came off as a negative personal attack. And that's definitely what it wasn't. What I meant was, by all of that, is that I want a little bit more legitimate company behavior from Syncro. I want them to have a LinkedIn page. I want to have them show us their board of directors. I want to I
I
want
thought
them
you
to
were
publish.
talking about when you were beating up on Richard for wanting a button to uninstall software. That one still stands.
Oh no, that stands.
Sorry, Richard.
No, I wish one of my biggest feedback items for Syncro is I want them to have a customer advisory panel, right? And for the very specific reason of, if you're taking all of your feedback from Facebook, you're taking feedback from the people who really aren't using your product. Because if they spend more than an hour a day on Facebook, they're not spending their time on their business. And that's flat out going to stand. And so those of us who are out there working hard and don't have the time to be in Facebook or choose not to do it, there's no real option for a feedback form, right? There is the ability to send feature requests through tech support, which I do frequently. But now, because again of there's two things I saw in this last month. Steve, when you invited me to this podcast the first time, I went back through and watched a few of your previous episodes. And there was an episode with Ian recently, I guess in the last couple of months. And you mentioned a feature that I have been like begging for since almost day one. And he said he'd never seen requests for it. And that made me be like, uh-oh, what happened to all the requests that I've been sending in? So there's this sort of disconnect a little bit between where the information, obviously they love Facebook, right? Which it is what it is. But I would really love to see, maybe it's like, go make a GitHub repo. It's free. You can do it now. Let us all post feature requests as issues and count the thumbs. Like, let's do that, like make it a little bit easier to get to, and like make it a little bit more transparent. I know that for whatever reason, you guys are adamant against a public roadmap. Like, get over that. We need a freaking roadmap, right? Like, we have to grow our business and we need to know what you're working on. If you put something on Q1 of 2021 and it doesn't happen, no one's going to sue you. Like, but it's important to know what you guys are working on. Like, that's.
Yeah, I will say, with the number of features that you guys add, it can be difficult picking the ones that you really want to spend some time and focus and implement for your own MSP. Because obviously some of them you just don't need, like, but when they're like, okay, well, we're going to start releasing the SNMP monitoring stuff, like, man, maybe that would have been, well, okay, hold on. So maybe that would have been good for us to know that a version's coming, and then we're going to enhance it in December, and then we're going to do something else in March to enhance it more. And then, like, because a roadmap would at least give me the ability to know, okay, I get it. Like, it may change. But now I at least know what you guys want to be coming down the pike. And now I don't have to go look for other software, or maybe now's not the time to renew Aavik or whatever. I'm just throwing ideas out there, right? Like, maybe we wouldn't be spending money on other tools if we knew that maybe we're only 4 or 5 months away from XYZ. And again, I know that timeline is completely flexible, but the other thing that would help us do is if I see, all right, these are the 75 things they're going to do in January, because let's be honest, it could be that number. You guys do so much.
Yeah.
Man, it would be cool for me to see the list so I could say, okay, this looks cool, and this looks cool, and that's all the bandwidth I have to improve my Syncro this month. Like, yes. And maybe I'll put these in my secondary list, but now I can at least plan. Oh, okay, well, they plan on releasing this in the middle of January, so February 1st, I'll put Syncro time, and that's what I'll hopefully work on. I guess that's where I'm at. It would be cool for me to see what's coming, because then I would be able to better plan my future around what Syncro is going to do for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear that. While I can't promise a public roadmap, what I can promise is a different forum other than Facebook. And that's coming here probably within like a month. So that's really exciting, because we do want our customers to have another area to go outside of Facebook, because we understand it's hard to manage Facebook. you'll see a post and then like the next day it's gone because it's up the feed. And so yeah, we absolutely see the value.
And Facebook moves things around so strangely too. Like
Yeah.
I'll get a notification for a post, and then like when I click, like because there are certain groups I want notifications from. So I'll click on that notification for that post, and when I click on it, it does not take me to that post. It takes me to a different post. I don't want this post. I want the other post. So yeah, if you guys had your own forum system, like that would be, I think the technical term is more gooder.
Yeah, it's definitely more gooder, and it's coming soon, which is exciting.
And Richard decided he wanted. Chris says, I would love a voting system for feature requests. Richard said, sorry, what I'm referring to are single installs and uninstalls from Chocolatey. So he doesn't want to go to the list of apps. He wants to be able to go to an individual computer and not have to create a policy and apply a policy to a computer. He wants to go to an individual computer and see a list of 18,000 things that are in Chocolatey and click on the one he wants to install. So basically, Richard wants you to create a Chocolatey agent. Is what no, so I do think that there are some good points. So I do think it would be great for me to. I've said this before. I think there should be a select all in the Chocolatey area, so that way, you know, if I want to literally have everything get upgraded, I just want to select all, man.
Yep.
I also think that it would be. I think there was something else I wish it could do. I do wish it were a little easier for us to do an uninstall too. Like I wish there were a checkbox for I don't want Adobe Flash on this computer. Uninstall. Like because I think as of tomorrow it's no longer, or tomorrow's the last day that Adobe even supports Flash. So like we gotta get rid of some of this stuff, and it would be nice for me to just boop, checkbox, remove.
Yeah.
But then can Chocolatey uninstall things that Chocolatey didn't install? Like, can Chocolatey remove Adobe Flash if another MSP installed it with Ninite, or if the end user installed Flash thanks to some third-party nonsense they downloaded and installed that also installed Flash and 18 other things it shouldn't have installed?
Yeah, I don't think Chocolatey can uninstall if they didn't install it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how it was installed originally. So there's 8 ways to install those products. Which, you know, another thing that I think would be really fantastic, because obviously this is a scripting thing, right? Like the answer to that is this guy just wants some scripts that are in there and he can run on demand for any of his customers, right? Like that's simple. But what's not simple necessarily is always getting that, right? Like I would love to see some expansion on the script, the community. Like obviously this is coming, right? You're going to add a community repository for SNMP stuff, recipes or whatever they call them. Yep. And I would be willing, and this is the thing too, right? Like I beat my head up against the wall against McAfee antivirus a couple of months ago.
Oh, that's my favorite
and
antivirus,
now,
by the way.
Now I have a wonderful script to remove that and all of its associated BS. I haven't published it to the script repository only because I've been busy, and you know, but also the businessman in me is like, this is IP, and then the greedy person in me is like, I worked hard for this and I own it. And I could be incentivized to publish that if there was an opportunity to monetize it, right? Like if I got $5 every time someone pulled it into their system,
you know,
or something to that effect.
That.
Right, I would totally.
I'd
love to support others.
Scripts. You can write scripts for Kaseya, and then you can upload them, and then you can charge for them. I think I still have a Slack installer script that I haven't updated in like 3 years for Kaseya, and every now and then somebody buys it. I charge a whole $1 for it.
Right, that would incentivize people that do have scripts. I would love to also contribute back to the people if I was paying $1, $5, whatever. Because there's some that are really worth it. Like, man, I pay $20 for a script. I pay $100 for a script if it saved me the requisite number of hours. But That's just another little.
Yes.
I like that idea. Crystal, could you? I know that's super easy to whip up. Just go ahead and script that for me real quick.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Did you hear me typing? That's what I was doing. I was just getting that ready right now. You'll see it in about 5 minutes. No big deal.
Yeah, just gotta hit the update button. Refresh.
You mentioned SNMP, and I would be remiss if I didn't comment. Oh, no. I'm torn. I'm really, really torn because A, I like the idea of SNMP being there.
Yeah.
But B, I hate the idea of it. I think I pissed off. Was it Andrew again? I forget his name. I'm sorry. Andy. I made a comment on the chat for the year-end review thing that I was disappointed by all of the half-baked products that get released, right? And again, hyperbolic statement. Let me qualify that. And I totally understand in software development, you have the MVP, you got the minimum viable thing, you put it out there, you see what people do with it, and then you iterate, right? And I'm happy they do that to a point. But it was, I spent a lot of time trying to use V1, and I got nowhere. And then quickly there was a V2 or 1.2 or 0.2. And again, I spent time trying to use it and realized that like it's just not there, right? And Andreessen was right. Like, what was this in the 90s? Early 2000s, software's eating the world. Software ate the shit out of this world, and software has indigestion, right? There are so many products that do SNMP monitoring that Syncro is never going to reach, right? And the idea that Syncro, to me, like, this is the slippery slope of product development and you guys growing your business, right? The core reason that we picked Syncro, like I said, is because the agent did some things. To me, the core product is the agent, right? It's the monitoring. It's the information pulled back from the computer. It's the ability to push scripts and execute them on demand. It's the ability to process updates and have them actually work, right? Like that's the key functionality of what Syncro is to me. And I don't want you to be more than a lot of those things. And I'm a person, whatever, but I'm concerned that we got chat, and chat could be so much more. And there's honestly, I've seen 2 products in the last year that have chat down hard. It's awesome. And it integrates to all the RMMs, except you go to the list and like, oh, sorry, you got Syncro. So instead of building these all to yourself from the ground up, I just really wish you took on sort of the idea that we want to have more of an open platform and lean on integrations.
Yeah, and I definitely see that, and I mean we do have a ton of integrations. I think that there are everything that we build, we look at it and we're like, okay, is this something that we should integrate? Is this something that we can build from the ground up and continue to rev on it? Because when you integrate with something, you're kind of limited on the functionality and what you can do on both the RMM and the PSA side. Because I think that with Syncro, the power is the combined RMM and PSA. The power is the way that they talk to each other, the way that a script can access a custom field on a customer detail screen, for example. So the power lies there. So when we think about building things like SNMP or chat, and we do build those from the ground up, I think the main thought process is we are going to continue to add to these things and have it talk directly and natively within the platform. So of course, yes, that like the integrations with antivirus and PAX8 and things like that like the integrations are pretty great, and we're going to continue to add on to those integrations, and we're going to continue to add integrations that people are requesting. You'll see a lot of that, I think, in Q1. But those things that we want natively built in for MSPs to not have to leave the platform and to be able to, quickly create tickets from chats, for example, and now it's in the mobile app. Like, I think that there's things like that where, our whole mindset is this is like a fully combined platform. And as much of the stuff that we can build in it from the ground up with our own technology, that's kind of where we're going with that. Of course, like I said, there are really cool integrations on the way. And even like I just found out different things like, we've added to our API where, there's different levels that you can access. We're looking into accessing the actual asset information, like you're saying, where the API restricts that right now. We're looking into that. Where, the Zapier integration, it was in beta for a very long time. It's coming out of beta, and we're going to add additional triggers there. So you're going to continue to automate other things throughout other platforms also. So we're just going to continue to do what we do and, develop and make things that, MSPs are wanting, needing, asking for. And we feel really good about where we're headed. Like I said, I can't promise a public roadmap, but I can foresee more of those fireside chats with insights of where the product's headed from, our product manager as well as our, CTO. So I can see that happening for sure. Because we want you guys to know what's on the way. We want to help you grow your business. And like Steve's saying, we want you to be able to eliminate as many additional costs and fees from other platforms also. If we know something's on the way, heck, we want to let you know. So I definitely can see the value there too.
Right. I'm waiting for the day that you guys start raising the rates.
So
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen at some point.
Richard brought up another point. So he did go in further. Let's see here. So many comments to review. All right. So it has nothing to. If I have 50 PCs and only 10 need a specific app, instead of just using Chocolatey that's built in, I have to script it. Same for uninstall. But do you? I don't think you do, because you can go to the third-party patch management, and you can go. You don't need to.
Right. You need a policy for that, though.
You need a policy. So,
but that's simple. You hit clone for policy. You got a new policy. Go edit the things you need, and then do your quick search. Target the 15 machines you want, and apply that policy.
Right. So Nick said, I agree. Roadmaps are helpful, especially for someone who's thinking of switching. And then Richard, we're back here. Plus, under third-party patch management policy, I can't add additional apps that have update if present, which is also an issue in creating policies. Come on, Crystal, it's just a checkbox.
That's all it is.
Right.
Checkbox.
Well, put 50 checkboxes in there. It doesn't mean they need to work. Just put them in there.
I just want to clarify, Richard, I've got jokes. I'm not actually teasing you, okay? All right, I may want to install an update for the 5 computers that have a specific app. Other than that, I love Syncro. I'm not really interested in non-chocolatey items. I just don't expect my tier 1 techs to script things. Okay.
Right. And tier 1 techs shouldn't script things, right? Like
they shouldn't.
Like essentially what I should do is I should have scripts that I, as the boss, have vetted that are available to run in certain environments. And then my tier 1 guys have the opportunity to know that they can run those scripts, right? Like we have a number of, like I said, a lot across our customer base. Almost every customer has their own line of business product, right? There's some app or whatever thing that they have that they all need on their computers, and it from time to time gets updated. But or let's talk about printers, right? Because printers, everyone's environment is horrible. We have a law firm we work with, and they've got 10 freaking printers, right? And so the way that problem got solved, the way I solved printers, is took the time to go in, document all the, you go to every printer, you run out the configuration page. Some of them are HP, some of them are Brother, some of them are whatever the hell they are, Xerox. And then you go back and you spend an hour or two and you go and you script the installation for those printers. And then you never have to do that again. And one thing that's happened recently that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, if they're not head down like software people, is Windows 10 implemented a whole new printer driver installation methodology that's really freaking slick. And it works really, really well. And so we actually went back and updated some older scripts that we had that required, downloading the driver and whatnot. But it's PowerShell based now. It's super, super quick. And you do that one time, and now you've got a boilerplate. We essentially have a boilerplate for installing printers, right? All I got to do is change a couple of variables in that, and it works anywhere in the world. And so I think that's important, right? Is like, you can't necessarily expect, this is part of the sprawl that worries me, right? Is a lot of people are like, I want a button that does this. Well, that's great, but you have more power if they give us the opportunity to have that script that does that.
And let's also not forget that if you have a button that does this, like, how many buttons do you expect Syncro to create is my first question. And then my next question is, at what point are you actually an IT person? And at what point are you just a guy that knows where all the buttons are in Syncro? And I get, like, you want to make sure that your tier 1 guys can be more empowered to do things, but there's also a reason that they're tier 1 guys. You know, you maybe don't want them just installing things willy-nilly, you know? Maybe if something needs installed, it should be a tier 2 guy, and the tier 1 guy is just triaging the issue and escalating it at that point. I mean, I'm not going to tell people how to run their business, except for when I do. But the thing that I want to clarify is that if you as the business owner, or maybe you've got a key man, which get a key man insurance policy if you do. If you as the business owner have a really solid background in scripting, then Syncro really can do anything that you need it to do. And if your problem is that Syncro isn't able to do things because you want to make it easier for your tier 1 techs, then it sounds like what really needs to happen is you need to spend time, just like Derek said, you need to spend time figuring out what scripts you need to write those scripts, test them, vet them, and approve those scripts for use by your tier 1 guys. You know, if there's an application, like if you're telling me that you've got tier 1 guys that just randomly need to install any software at any moment, that sounds dangerous. I wouldn't trust a tier 1 guy to just randomly go and install random software. But if it's one of my customers' line of business apps, or if it's one of my tools, why don't I already have it scripted? Would be the response that I should be telling myself in my mind, right? So let's see what else. Richard also said, the only other thing that kills me is Syncro's remote system. It's much too far behind other systems, forcing me to have to utilize Splashtop and TeamViewer. I will say the remote system, I love that it's HTML5. I do. But there's something quirky about it if I try doing it from my iPad Pro.
I have to get in on this.
I'm a Mac user though, so I love that I can do it from my Mac. I'm a happy man there.
I've come around on this. I was an assassin in the beginning, and now I'm an advocate. And is the new beta product, is that something we talk about publicly, Crystal?
There's a beta product? Can I get
or is it? I don't remember signing an NDA, so is that available? It's available to everyone? I don't. If I just got in trouble, I'm sorry. Is that a no? Like, am I not supposed to talk about that?
It's not available to.
Oh, okay. Whoops. Anyway.
All right. So hold on. Let's back the train up a second here. So it sounds like there is a thing coming.
There's a thing. So Syncro Live, I love.
I do too.
And but here's why I love it. All of the stuff except the remote. So, but it's nice. So we're a TeamViewer house, right? We're a TeamViewer. I guess I never listed them on my product list. Look, yes, I wish I didn't need TeamViewer, but it is literally worth its weight in gold. I pay, I don't know, $3,000-$4,000 annually for our subscription.
Nice.
And it gets me out of all the jams. And Syncro installs and integrates with the TeamViewer, right? So boom, it's sexy. But I like having the options, right? So the Syncro Live is, we all know, like, let's not beat this dead horse. Syncro Live Remote is slow, it's clunky, But that one time that something's wonky with TeamViewer, you can get in with the remote of the Syncro Live, and you can, get it working, and then you go in. But I love Syncro Live because of the command shell,
Yes.
and the PowerShell,
Yes.
and I love it because of the remote registry editor. I've needed to I can get in there when someone's on their computer without having to, do anything to their computer, and
you don't have to
do a little
script it.
registry thing.
You can
Right, no
edit the
scripting if you don't
registry
want to.
without having to script. You can literally just right click, edit D word. I am with you. I am 100% with you. I literally, the only thing I really don't like is it's quirky on my iPad, because I also use a mouse on my iPad. So let Dev know that maybe they should just figure out what's going on, and hopefully it is something that can be fixed. I assume it's not a
Be
quick
patient.
fix.
Be patient, young man.
Okay. And then the other thing, I like that even though it's HTML5, you do have that little copy paste area. So you made it easy. You guys have done things to try and help us bridge the gap of it's in a web browser, but it doesn't suck so hard. So
Yeah.
So I'll say I get it. He said, other than that, I love all the integrations. They really do push a lot of updates. I look forward to working with my staff on this system. Even cool little things like the snowflakes are so much fun. All right, now you're just sucking up. Now, the snowflakes,
Hey,
really, Richard?
They're awesome, Richard.
I've got them on. I've got them on, and it added a little bit of levity to my day.
You're not wrong.
I accidentally figured out how to turn them off the other day, and I still haven't turned them off. So.
I love this session. It's great talking to you guys. Reporting system has become so much better. The thing is that you end up with hundreds of... Oh, he's back to... So he just doesn't want hundreds of policies. But that's what Control F is for.
And yes, but they're on the road. They've already said that that's on their roadmap. Yep. And, nesting policies and inheritance. I don't know which the verbiage is. But yeah, that at some point, you're going to have the luxury of... I've got a desktop policy, and my customers all inherit from that, and it's going to get better. I'm not worried about that at all.
I'll say this. I can't wait for the day that I don't need Adigy anymore. And I just want to reiterate, you know what I use Adigy for? Remotely connecting to the desktop of a Mac.
Hey, I got you covered.
Yeah?
Covered. Yeah. You'll be excited. In the next couple, in Q1, it was said out loud in Q1.
Can I get the beta of that? How do I get some betas, Crystal?
Hey, how many Macs do you manage?
Oh, there's literally ones of
6.
them.
No, and we're the same way, right? The only people that have Macs in my customers are the one or two CEOs or CFO, not even CFOs, they like Windows, right? Because they use Excel so much. Presidents, right? Maybe a person in marketing and just insists on having a Mac. But yeah, we manage I swear across all of our endpoints we have 3 Macs.
I've got an interior design firm and a church that they are Mac shops. But I mean, between all of those and mine, I mean, we're talking half a dozen ish. Okay, so I don't have a lot. Which makes tools I really need to access my Macs. Do I really want to spend, whatever the minimum is for Adigy just to have does anyone really want to spend $1,200 a month just so you can remotely access 6 Macs? No, that sucks. I'd rather just fire the client. Because it's
and this is why we use TeamViewer, right? If we need it, we got it. But the story of Mac management via Microsoft Endpoint Manager is not bad. So for the most part, we're covered on the security side, right? We use Sentinel-1. It installs on the Mac, and so we're able to lightly manage those devices, through the Microsoft subscriptions and the security tools that we use with Microsoft. So it's when you have a handful, but I understand, I get it. There are partners, there are MSPs that do 100% Mac, and
Yep.
So, Crystal, if I were so inclined to watch this fireside chat, is that an option?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yep.
And Richard said, everything else with Syncro Live is great, but the remote isn't integrated into the phone app yet. Oh, I didn't even realize Syncro Live is integrated into the phone app now?
It in the mobile app, it'll give you like Syncro Live. When you click Syncro Live, it's going to pop you out into a web browser.
Oh, okay. Is that something that you think you guys might start putting into the app?
Yeah, I know we're looking into it. I know we have specific resources for the mobile app, so I know we're looking into it.
That's really cool. All right, so
that's tough though. I mean, you try to do remote on any computer, right? Like that's the emergency situation where you're like, I got no choice. I'm sitting at the airport, but also the reason why I carry a Surface around with me.
And see, I carry my Mac. I used to carry my MacBook with me everywhere I went, but now I'm able to do so much for my business on my iPad. Like, if I could do this on my iPad, I might not have a Mac. Like, legit. Yeah. Like, legit. And the other, like, you know, I can't hook up an external monitor and have it not suck to an iPad. But, you know, just like little quality of life things make it impossible. But, like, I can go work on, you know, client websites. I can go review my Syncro stuff. I can do billing. I can do all kinds of stuff from an iPad. It's just so much nicer with a big 34-inch ultra wide in front of me.
Yes.
So, didn't know about nesting. That'll be very helpful. OMG, I can't wait to see this. I assume he's talking about, the new update. So maybe he's talking about the remote. I don't know. He might be talking about the remote because they're delayed, you know. So they might be talking about the fancy new remote thing that Derek spilled the beans on. How far out are we from getting this remote thing that he's beta testing?
I don't know.
Oh, Richard said he manages about 150 Macs at the moment.
Richard does?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, Richard, you're going to be happy camper here pretty soon.
Okay. And Q1, so that, just to clarify, Richard, Q1 does mean by like March 31st, right? So you can't be mad if it's the end of January and you still don't have it.
Right. Yes.
And technically, you can't really be too mad if it's the end of March and you still don't have it. So Derek, I feel like we went off on so many tangents.
Right.
I had so many questions I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I was able to get through any of them.
I'm looking through some of the ones we said we wanted to talk about, and I feel like we more or less answered all of them. But I know one that you had specifically called out was, you know, did Syncro help us increase MR, the monthly reoccurring? And you know, if you haven't figured out by now, the answer is yes. I mean, we immediately saved the SolarWinds bill was a little over $1,000 a month. I feel like in my mind, like when it hit 1,000 is when I lost my crap. And obviously that went down to I was like 150 or 129 or whatever, because originally we went with the Pro package. But again, at that time, it was
the most expensive Syncro is still only 150 a user, if that, and that's when you're paying monthly. I mean, it gets down to like 120 or something when you pay annually. Like, it really isn't bad. Like,
well, and that's the thing too, right? So with SolarWinds, that ticketing was one of my biggest challenges for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I tried third-party products. SolarWinds, Logic Now had one that was sort of kind of there, but it was coming and going. And then SolarWinds was like, yeah, we're gonna fix that. No, we're making a new one. And it was just this super weird integration because you had to like actually import your assets and stuff like every time you made an update. Like it was just a mess. And so that was one of the things that like, and I want to clarify too, like we did endpoint management, we did AV through SolarWinds as well. So when we dropped, the $1,000 a month included about $600 in AV. So, but you know, it was a significant saving for like $400. But anyway, yeah, like the key, there's two key features that like hands down when I tested all of the testing that I did, Syncro won, right? And it was the effectiveness of patching, like it actually works, and then it was having the integrated ticketing. Like that was man, it needs a lot of love. I really wish they would put a dev team on fit and finish. Every time I change a ticket status after I started typing the ticket reply, I'm like, got me again.
Oh yeah, that does drive me crazy too. Thankfully, at least on my Mac, it'll like refresh the page, and then I just click a little button, and then it puts all my stuff back.
They did add that. I don't know when that little button came, but I did notice that. But then part of me is like, why do you got to make me click the button? Just refill out the form for me. Like, what the hell? And one of the things
have to hit save just to like every time you change something. It's cool that it's automatically updating, but I wish that it could be done like, I think maybe the term is Ajax, where it doesn't have to refresh the page every time.
That is that, and that's a 6 of one, half a dozen thing, right? Like you just don't know. I feel like that's like part of the fun. It's like whack-a-mole, or I don't know, some kind of game. But like some fields you can change, and it takes the change, and you're good to go. Other fields you change it, and you got to wait for the refresh, right? Yeah, I've sent that in a few times as what I thought were feature requests. So we'll see what happens. And then there was my burn. I got to get this in. I would I have to use my 15 minutes of fame. My burning desire, like if I could wave a magic wand and Syncro would make one update that would satisfy Derek Gabriel, and then he would live happily ever after, it would be HTML support in the ticket notes, because that is the one thing we miss. Like, try doing a step-by-step instruction with plain text. It's a lot of spaces and fake tabs. It's a pain in the ass.
I would even be happy if it were more like the Reddit editor, text editor, where
like some Markdown or something.
Yeah, Markdown would be cool, or even if it was just a very generic, like, it doesn't have to be like complete rich text, but even if it or like Slack, like Slack, you can do bold, italic, bullets, numbers, text blocks, like just real basic.
Right.
Like, I don't need every...
Yeah, I think Slack uses Markdown as well.
Yeah, I don't need superscript and highlight, and like, I don't need all that crap. Like, sure, some of that stuff's cool, but I'd even be happy with just some basic Markdown. I think that would go a long way to making it more user friendly for our end users. And I would even go as far as to say, like, I would be okay not even seeing a preview. Like, because I'm comfortable enough with Markdown, at least, where I remember for a while, like Zendesk, years ago, Zendesk, you could do Markdown, but you couldn't actually see it unless you clicked a button that said preview.
Oh.
So, so like, I would even, for the people that are saying, like, you guys are so behind on like remote, like, Kaseya BMS does rich text in the text editor for notes. Which will lead me to say this. I'm hearing a lot of buzz around Datto right now. Autotask, I haven't really heard much about. I mean, I know some people that are switching to Autotask from like Kaseya and ConnectWise and that type of stuff. I don't hear many people switching from Syncro. But the big thing I'm hearing right now is everyone switching from other things over to Datto RMM. And how excited they are about Datto RMM. And like, for example, Datto RMM has the HTML5 everything, like Syncro Live. I have no idea how it functions. It could suck. I mean, I love how Crystal's like, yeah, it could. It really could. She didn't say it does.
I didn't say that.
She didn't say it does. She just said it could.
I didn't say that.
You smiled. You nodded. I knew what it meant. She didn't say that, guys. Datto, you can't sue her. These are all my words. So yeah, she's clear. She's safe. I said so. All right. So I'll say this, like, I'm hearing a lot of buzz about Datto, and they've put a lot of time and effort over the last like 2-3 years into the user interface on Dado RMM, because I don't know if you guys remember before Autotask, whatever they called it, before that was CentraStage. And
Yeah.
CentraStage was hideous, but it was functional. Um, it reminds me of Repair Shopper in a way. Like, no offense, I also don't like Repair Shopper. I think it's hideous. I think Syncro is an improvement over what I remember from my Repair Shopper days, but there are still some idiosyncrasies that I just don't get. Like, because it still has that repair shop type stuff baked in, because it's just still there, and you guys are, I don't want to say you're bolting on more and more, because that makes it sound janky. It's not janky, but like, you guys keep making more and more improvements, but like, I still feel Repair Shopper. So like, I can't wait for the day when you guys are like, you know what? Let's just completely overhaul this UI. Let's make everything all pretty, and you know, have really cool backgrounds, and let's just make it look like Crystal's room there, with all the Syncro colors and
Yes.
and gauges and widgets, like the dashboard page, gorgeous. I wish every page was as gorgeous as the dashboard page. Truly. I'm not saying
The new CEO reports, or whatever they call them, those look pretty good. But I definitely, this is part of the growing up that I was mentioning earlier, is like, when they actually have people who are dedicated to user experience, UX and CX, and there's a team that cares about that, then that's that, to me, that's the next step.
Yeah.
Aaron Lizarraga says, I love the webhooks to Teams. Kudos for that. And Richard says,
Yeah, I just wish that would get better. That's on my list of stuff where it's like, it's there, but and that's, again, like, there's these two products that I've seen, and I can't remember either of their names, but they both, like, essentially the tech can work in Teams, right? Because it can integrate with the other platforms, and the requisite pieces of what Syncro needs from the API are missing for that to work. But instead of Syncro being the one that's like, oh, we're going to make the Teams, I'm using integration air quotes because it's literally a webhook, but like, if they, there's the opportunity there to take advantage of like adaptive cards or other things where I can update the ticket status from Teams, and then I don't have to get back, I don't have to jump back and forth. Because, again, as like I said, we do a lot with Microsoft, and all of our customers have Teams. We spend a lot of time interacting with our Teams is like number one, Synchro's like second or third on the list of where we have to be during the day. But again, like, I don't necessarily, I mean, I want that to happen, but I don't necessarily want or think that Synchro's got to be the one that builds that. But, anyway.
Oh, good, man. So, I think this is a great comment to kind of start wrapping up with. From Richard, I found Dado did everything and more than what I needed. I switched from Dado to Syncro. However, at the core, for the expense, Syncro does what I want and need without the added expense. So that's interesting. So it sounds like, to me, when I hear Dado did everything and more, that sounds like he could have grown into Dado further. And that makes me a little worrisome. But I do think that Syncro is probably able to check off more boxes than he realizes, especially when you guys start to think about how much you can truly accomplish when it comes to scripting and automation, and if like I said, if you can be a PowerShell rock star, then you really can do just about anything you need it to do, especially because they've built that PowerShell module out for Syncro. I wish that the PowerShell module documentation was a little more clear, because let me tell you, even with the notes down at the bottom of the scripting area, it still took me like 19 tries to get the stuff working. And that could be because I'm not a PowerShell rockstar, or it could be because maybe I just didn't understand the context of the comments that you guys had in there. So I think with just a little bit more context and a little bit more documentation, that the PowerShell stuff would be epic.
Well, they've got all those sample scripts now too. I think that really helps, those boilerplates where you can see how certain things work.
Yep.
That's true as well. So,
Yep, exactly.
so
I would say that I would love to come back, Steve, and have a conversation with you just a little bit more about the industry in general. But I really feel like in that last comment sort of kind of says it in a way. But like I feel like there's a lot of rent seeking going on, right? Like there's been so many acquisitions, and a lot of like these acquisitions are obviously how these companies are growing, right? Growth through acquisition because there's no organic growth, and like that looks good on paper for financial reasons. But like Datto and a lot of these other companies sort of have like things that people, like you said, they could grow into them. Yes, they potentially could, but also those could just be things that no one ever really needs, and that's they're just rent seeking, right? They're looking for money that isn't really necessarily providing a value. So that's kind of a challenge that I have, and I don't at this point I haven't felt at all constraint, any kind of constraint from using Syncro to this point, and I think we're just coming into like a really great spot. I think Syncro is going to be very instrumental in the next phase of growth for my company. But I will be completely frank too that we're doing so much more now with Microsoft than we ever could from an endpoint management. And one of the reasons why Syncro is so valuable for that is because what Microsoft's lacking at this point is you can do PowerShell scripting inside of Endpoint Manager, right, which is Intune. And so when we onboard a computer, we use Autopilot. And then Autopilot actually installs the Syncro agent. And from there, we use the Syncro then to install a bunch of apps and bring it up to the environmental standards. And there is but you cannot on demand run a PowerShell script from Endpoint Manager. But that's obviously going to change at some point, right? So there's a challenge that eventually Syncro and other RMMs may become obsolete by some of the first-party tools that companies like Microsoft put out. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. We're super happy, like I said. So I think that's a challenge that the industry faces is,
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there, because I think that while like ConnectWise has been around forever, they have. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, we have everything ConnectWise has. No, like that's not a thing. It would take years for us to get there. But what I do know is that we have MSPs that are like 15 to 20 technician MSPs migrating from ConnectWise, migrating from Autotask, that, as long as, you're running your business in a structured way, the tools that you need to use and you use them daily and you have automation set up and you are structured in that way. What we're hearing from these larger MSPs is, holy smokes, this cleaned up my business. Like now I don't have all of this bloated software. It's fast, it's modern, it's streamlined. And that's what we're hearing from the larger MSPs, like the 20 user, we had Ross on with you, Steve. I can't remember when that was. They're a very large MSP and very happy with Syncro. And what I like about that is that, I think that the point of moving and migrating to Syncro is that we want you to grow. That's like our whole thing. We want to help MSPs make more money, right. And which means growth. So like we're very confident in our software that we're not going to create a software that essentially is going to then limit, it's like the idea of, I always like use this reference where like personal trainers, for example, it's funny when you hear about like, hey, I'm a personal trainer and I'm going to offer you cookies to keep you as a customer. Like, do you know what I mean? Where you like have this cycle, like it's like that's not the case here with Syncro. We are building things continuously to help our customers grow, and not to grow out of Syncro. It's to help them grow in general. And so I think that you'll find that as your company grows and you invest your time in Syncro and really see how the ins and outs and how it can save you time, save you money, you're going to grow with us, and it's going to be awesome.
I don't actually have anything of value to add to that, except that I remember I was a member of Planet Fitness years ago, and they had pizza night. Pizza night at Planet Fitness, guys.
This is what I'm saying. Job security. We're not trying.
That's genius from their standpoint.
All right, well, hey, Derek, Crystal, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. Crystal, I always enjoy having you on. Derek, it was awesome to meet you. I want to take you up on that. If you want to be on, let's book some time and let's get you on here again, so that way you and I can continue to talk nerdy. I just don't think people have it in them to do more than 2 hours.
Right.
We are at 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 34 seconds. So
goodness. Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.